Welcome to Modern Anarchy, the podcast featuring real conversations with conscious objectors to the status quo. I'm your host, Nicole.
I tried to keep her quiet, but she's screaming outside of me. I tried to keep her hiding, oh, shut up. I tried to keep her quiet, but she's a wild, wild woman.
On today's episode, we have a conversation with the founder of Living Wisdom Church, Amanda, all about reclaiming your sacred sovereignty. Together, we talk about harmful religious experiences, recreating the meaning of church, and tuning into your own wisdom. Anyone who's listening to this podcast knows that I have talked about religious trauma, my own experience about this, and I have strong opinions with spirituality. And so it was so nice to just sit with Amanda and be honest in that, in the ways that I've been hardened to even conceptualizing a world outside of the physical here and now. And so I really just enjoyed expanding my own perspective and learning from Amanda's journey and authentic connection with herself and all the messages that she shares on this episode of, how do we bring out our authentic gifts and use that for good within the world? I think anyone can benefit from listening to this and learning to believe in themselves. Y'all, tune in. Had a little bit of a fiasco there. That wasn't going to work. That just was not going to work.
Right? Mercury's still in retrograde. We found a workaround. It's all good.
Exactly. Yeah. If one technology piece doesn't work, try another. What are you up to on your Sunday?
Well, normally I might be doing something different, but had a little celebration last night. Had some champagne. I don't normally drink, and I had a little bit of a hangover today. So,
are you okay?
I've been kind of like this slow self-care so that I could be in my best for this. So.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and hopefully you're feeling a little bit better. Maybe took some Advil or something.
I'm feeling much better. Hydrated, rested.
Nice.
Showered.
Nice. Whole new person. I feel like the shower always you come out, you're a whole different human. It's amazing. Yeah. Right. Do you have any questions about the podcast? Any questions for me, who I am?
No, I loved Tazima's introduction, and I just feel like lots of alignment, lots of resonance, and excited to drop in with you.
Yeah. What pieces do you feel like we're in alignment?
Just the whole sense of anarchy and, really being outside the system and questioning the current paradigms and being brave and bold and talking about what's real and
hell yeah.
Yeah.
I am so excited to hear how you fit into this, because Tazima didn't really tell me any of your backstory, so I don't really know anything about you, what you do. I kind of saw your little signature blurb, but that's about all I know, so I'd love if you could just give me a little context background to why you resonate so deeply with these things.
Well, I've always been outside of the box. When I was young, just thought quite differently, born and raised Mormon, and just always had a lot of questions about things in school and at church and in my family, and was considered, I guess, a boat rocker, but not because I liked to rock the boat, but just because I saw contradictions and things that didn't feel right, and I would ask about them or say something, and it was kind of shocking to, the culture that I grew up in, where you just kind of nodded your head and smiled and, be a part of the flock. And then, as I got older, started to, in college, started to realize that I just didn't fit into those paradigms. There was nothing really wrong with me. And, from a young age, I had really profound experiences of samadhi, really expanded consciousness, and getting messages and sometimes even visions of the future, or experiences that were beyond the third dimension. there was no language about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized like nobody around me is talking about this. So I've been really curious about what those visions were for and I knew they were a gift, but I wasn't exactly sure how to use that gift. And I was considered very smart for my age and put into programs for gifted students and given really beautiful educational opportunities. So some of the questions and the curiosity were really nourished and encouraged. Some of them were not. And I have, just fast forward to the recent past, within the past several years in following source wisdom, as I call it, got guidance to start a church. I was teaching a mystery school called Living Wisdom based in sacred feminine archetypes. And I was offering plant medicine as a part of that and got guidance to start a church that is dogma free to help people access their inalienable sovereignty. So really what I've found is that my mission is to really help as many people as possible to break outside of the many colonial influenced, patriarchal influenced structures and paradigms from school systems, language, government, politics, finance. There are just a lot of structures that have been created that we accept as this is just how it is. This is what we have to do to survive. And they are purposefully created to subjugate us and keep us from accessing our own internal wisdom, to honor our soul contracts. And so I've been curious about how to help people to unravel those things, because they're all like in the subconscious. They're just these structures we don't even necessarily know that they're limiting us or that they're having an impact on us. And then there's our own unique traumas and childhood experiences, the way we were raised, that can also add in a unique subconscious programming inside of us that limits us. And so I'm kind of like a subconscious whisperer. I can kind of see what's going on for people because of my gifts. And so my education, my experience, my initiations in the spiritual realms with medicine and indigenous wisdom lineages have been about how to help unravel those pieces and then help us to tune into source wisdom so that we can really trust the guidance that's coming from within. Because I really believe when we have access to that and we're in a community that supports that way of being, like, this doesn't align for me, even if it doesn't agree with everybody around, to just trust that that is okay and that we need diversity. We need people thinking differently. We need differences of opinions. Conflict is not a bad thing. We don't want everybody to be cookie cutters. The only way that anything thrives is from diversity and from, a little bit of chaos and a lot of unpredictability. And we are in a time of that right now, for sure. And this is actually, I had visions of this time where so many things were going to be falling apart and crumbling, and a lot of pain and suffering for people. And that this is actually a time of rebirth, because all of those structures are not in alignment with our best and highest, and they have their, shelf life is expired, and they're starting to crumble. And a lot of people are very frightened about that, but it's actually very exciting because there's so many new things. It's this opportunity to be curious and open to what's the better way. What's the better way with how we engage with the environment? What's the better way with how we engage with our fellow humans? So that's how I resonate with being outside the box.
And I love it. I'm like, thank you for sharing all that. I'm feeling this, long journey, it sounds like. Growing up Mormon, that is a whole culture in and of itself. And I actually,
Yes.
my mom and sister are both Mormon, so I only tangentially know. I've never been Mormon myself. I was very like evangelical Christian. So, but similar camp of just completely negating yourself and your sense of wisdom internally. I mean, I remember praying and asking to lose my sense of self and let God come into me. And just even that act of like so deeply ignoring my own sense of internal wisdom to follow a structure of what my life was supposed to be and to hear from a God. I think it is a journey that you might resonate with, of that process of learning to connect with yourself and to realize that not hearing that message from God and all that stuff and it not resonating with you. I was so taken aback by your quote, "There was nothing really wrong with me." I think so many Christians and other people who have gone through this religious path and like really struggle to fit in, wonder, is it me? Is something wrong with me? Am I just not getting it? Because everyone around me seems to get it, so it must be me. And I felt that same thing where I had to really like realize that, there's a life outside of this community that I have. There are other people living different worlds that might resonate with me deeper.
Absolutely. And that, what you're touching on is something that's why I created the church, because it's really about community. For me, church is about community. And I know a lot of people, one of the biggest practical pieces is that we feel like we belong to something. And a lot of people, I had a lot of friends when they were getting married and having kids, returning to church, even though they didn't believe in it, saying, well, I just, the community is really important. And that, for me, the Living Wisdom Church our mission is to create safe and sacred spaces for a diverse community to learn, heal, and grow together, so that, as long as you're showing up with loving kindness, with the curiosity to and intention to embrace lots of different people, that this is a place where you can belong, and to know that you're going to be treated with respect and loving kindness. And, we all need to belong, but we also have to honor our authentic, I call it a soul contract. We're here to do certain things. And when we have those two things, we are so powerful. And then, in a community, we become much greater than the sum of our parts.
Oh, completely. Completely. Yeah. I just got back from church for me, which is rock climbing. I always say that to my friends, and I always say that as a joking, like, this is my church. I wake up every Sunday. I go. We have this set time where people from the community that I know always show up, same time. We connect, and it serves that same sort of community held space, at least for me personally.
Yes.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm so in awe that you could create a church. For me personally, when I went through this I was very a devout believer, and I think immediately stepping out of that space, I've had such a resistance to the idea of church, or even that word, or any sort of structured religion, which, I mean, you're doing it in I would say an unstructured, open way, but like, I just so much in me, like the idea of the word even church, just, I guess it's touching into an aspect of trauma, in my opinion,
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I totally get it. In fact, my partner is a former evangelical pastor of 20 plus years.
Whoa.
And found, just realized like, this isn't in alignment with me anymore. Started learning about plant medicine, psilocybin, and stepped away from that calling. And, it's like that's a big deal. And he's said, let's focus on the word community. So we call it Living Wisdom Community. But we do have some legal protections, which is interesting, because all that, I initiated all that before so many of these conversations and issues are now that it's like so hot, is like, oh, okay, I understand what Source was guiding me to do, to create some protections and allow. But yes, we're focused on community and not teaching any dogma. We like to share what these are things that are helpful for me. And, we want to learn about what's helpful for you. Let's learn and heal and grow together.
So tell me more. I mean, no one just gets up one day and says, I'm going to start a church. I mean, there's a whole...
Except me.
Exactly. But there's a whole process to you and who you are. And I want to hear all the juicy details of how you got to do this.
Well, like I said, I mean, I have had connection with Source my whole life. There have been times that I turned away from it because I thought that gift was tied in with being Mormon. And when I realized that's not resonating for me, I thought I had to put it down. And it didn't really leave me. I just quit giving it my attention for a while and focused on my academic studies and still was in pursuit of how to help people.
Yeah.
And then I was married to, I thought, the love of my life at the time. We had a lot of magic between us and moved from Utah to California. And as you do, started taking yoga. And I had already been doing meditation and visualization and started connecting with those visions again and started getting messages that I was about to go through an initiation. And the message was, this isn't a punishment. This is something that you need to move through to be able to help other people. So watch how you do it and pay attention to the steps. And then you'll be able to help other people to navigate crisis, which is what the whole world's in right now. So
yeah.
I didn't know it, but my husband was he was a carpenter, and I guess it's pretty prevalent in at least in California, probably around the United States, people that do that kind of work. Like, it's a lot of work. Like, he started using methamphetamines and just had basically schizophrenic, I don't know that he was ever diagnosed, but basically paranoid schizophrenic behavior. And it was very traumatizing.
Wow.
And I'm really grateful that I had the guidance from Source and the practice of meditation and yoga, because I started to get those messages again and realized, oh, that gift is here. And it really guided me through that and did teach me some really powerful practices that, even though it was traumatizing, I did have panic attacks. I still was able to make decisions that were outside of the fear programming and not in response to the threats and the intensity that was happening, and got through it and really realized, like, I don't have any regrets. I feel very empowered. I feel sad about his reality, but that was also his choice.
Right.
And it just, since then I've just been, and the messages that started coming to me were coming in the form of sacred feminine archetypes. And so that got me on a really powerful journey. And I ended up being ordained as a priestess in a specific lineage. I became a little too radical for them. And in feeling the wobbles, I know, like I kind of got kicked out of the priestess group, but I meditated before I got kicked out. I just kind of meditated, like, this is really wobbly. This isn't working. And it, what's the solution? And I was teaching mystery school for them as a template of these different archetypes. And the message came in like, you are tuned into Source, and your mission is to help other people to tune into Source, not teach a template. And so the word living wisdom came in, and I started the Living Wisdom School, and I'd been working with plant medicine, ayahuasca, since 2003, and Niño Santos, also known as psilocybin, and ultimately started to weave in plant medicine, Wachuma, also known as San Pedro. I became ordained as a minister in Medicine Path Native American Church, found that community and started praying with them, and found a lot of like deep family community. And ultimately it developed, you know, I could share a lot of mystical experiences, but just following the breadcrumbs, listening to source and how can I be of service, the mystery school, Living Wisdom Mystery School, I was guided, you know, also that ministry with Medicine Path Native American Church. I do have Native American ancestry, but I don't present that way, nor am I recognized in any tribe. And this was again before the big conversation about white appropriation had come up, but I personally felt like I wanted to stand on my own ground and take accountability for what I was doing. I knew that the plants, you know, nobody owns or has a monopoly over these plants.
Yeah.
They are here to help us to heal. I asked them, why are you helping us? You know, why do you help us so much? And they're like, they just showed me they're rooted in the awareness of unity consciousness. Like they're like, everything is one. And we're just trying to help heal the part of the one that needs healing, which is the humans. And I'm like, oh, okay. So like, they're like, you know, nobody has a monopoly over us. And we do want, you know, you are a safe and sacred guide. And this is a powerful tool for you to share with people. And I just wanted to say, I'm taking accountability. I'm not from any tradition, you know, I'm not offering traditional medicine ceremonies, and I'm not from generations of shamans doing this. And I wanted to take accountability in myself. So that was my ego reason, my own personal reason, but the guidance was just start a church, you know, and I didn't know why. And then, and it took a couple of years for the paperwork to complete. And we found out that we had got church status just a few months before COVID hit. And as soon as it hit, all the visions that I'd seen of the different ways of the powers that be working to control, control through fear.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, here we go, game on. And, here's some protection. So it just felt like perfect timing. And yeah.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, there is so much here to talk about. I think one of the first things I would love to ask you more about is, what is source? This is something that you keep talking about and saying, and I think in my full honesty of course, yeah, and in my full honesty, I think coming from such a Christian belief system, I have been so hard to the concept of a higher power, something beyond this dimension. So I am very like closed, and I'm like, no, you see science, this is what science is, and science is here. But like, I would love to have this conversation with you and just be soft and open and hear what you have to say about this, and expand my horizons, because I am still very like in this box. Thank you
for being open.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
thank you for being open to hearing. So I'll share from my personal experience, which is really the only valid thing I have to come from. You know, when I've had these experiences of like, wow, I'm not just me anymore. I'm part of this bigger thing. It's like it's ineffable. And you've maybe heard people say, don't try to F the ineffable. It's hard to put it into words. And Medicine Path calls it everything that's greater than us, that wishes us well. We all know that there are multiple dimensions. And even science now, not even super recent, but recent in the whole evolution of the world, very, very recently, have recognized, quantum physics, Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah.
We know that like putting our attention on something changes it, and something can be two different, can exist in two different forms at the same time. And it just doesn't really make sense to our normal three-dimensional human brains so much. And, I think most people have had an experience of walking into a room or approaching someone that we know and love, and you can just feel like something just happened here. You can feel it.
For
and
sure.
So And this is one of the things that our culture has disconnected us from. Many indigenous cultures recognize more than 5 senses. Oof. And so guess what? They're aware of more than 5 senses. And they've been, from the very early on cultivating those senses. And they are connected with realms that we may not be able to see, but they're real. You can't see a radio wave, but we know that they exist.
Of course.
And we work with them, even though we can't see them. We experience them, even though we can't see them. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of different layers of reality. We know they exist. There are probably plenty of layers we have no clue that exist, and they impact us and we impact them. And so some of them are benevolent and some of them are not, just like in this reality, as above, so below. And so, source for me is everything that's greater than me, that wishes me well, that provides life, that is ineffable. Like the beauty of the world, all the millions and billions of life forms and the ways that they engage with each other on complex levels. You can even still see it from an atheist point of view and recognize that the whole collection of the galaxy is operating on these high frequency algorithms that are ineffable, that are amazing, and they work in this beautiful way, and they're way beyond our human comprehension. So at times I do see it from an atheistic point of view of like, it's just this beautiful, very complex system that is set. And I feel like it's set for love and life and benevolence. And there are other elements that are in there that are just a part of it. But what I want to commune with is all that's greater than me, that wishes me well. Yeah. And then sometimes it does show up as God, in the white robes and the white beard, because that's how I was trained. And then, it was coming in as sacred feminine archetypes for me. So it comes in on a lot of different levels because it is everything. And then, the biggest one that's really landed with me is the me that is part of this whole big divine system of life that chose to incarnate as me. And I'm source experiencing the third dimension as Amanda Eloesh. And you are source experiencing this dimension as Nicole. So it's a lot of things. I don't think we could ever totally understand it. It's as a human anyway.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, bringing up quantum mechanics is one of my favorite things to talk about, because I really do think it was so huge. It was so huge for, I think, in my personal opinion, for us as humans. We have the laws of physics that we have used to understand our existence and what keeps us here on this earth with gravity, to understanding the grandness of the universe. And we had used all of those laws to understand everything. And we felt like we just had such a good grasp on the grandness through these mathematical calculations that were coming through. And then here's quantum mechanics just throwing all of that outside the window and saying, we really don't know what happens to the atom. We just know that it changes when we watch it, and that is really weird. So yeah, what happens when you do, what happens when you don't, all of that we cannot predict. And so I think, even from a very atheist, critical lens, you have to acknowledge that what we thought we knew about what we saw is completely wrong. And so leaving just that openness that there might be more than what we see and what we think we know. And you're talking about it being ineffable, and it's like, maybe, it's ineffable for now. Maybe we'll get to some grander point in our human experience table to understand these things. I mean, the things we know now as a human culture back in the day, 200, 300 years ago would be absolutely nuts. The fact that I'm talking to you with the internet, waves, things that we can't see, satellites, all this sort of stuff would be absolutely insane. So maybe, but I think that having this openness is probably the wisest thing to say, is that we really don't know. And so be open.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I'd love for you to say more on what the female archetypes are, or is. I don't even know how to ask a question about this.
What they are?
Yeah.
Well, anybody that's interested in archetypes, I mean, Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell are great sources to check in about, but, it's like from spirit perspective, it's like we are the creation of this complex system, right? That's of life that's created. And so all human beings, we're born and we have these like sacred codes that make up who we are. Our physical body, our mental, our emotional, our spiritual, the parts that we can't see. And we've found that there are certain personas that we can all relate to, right? Like the villain, the great mother, the mother figure, the goddess of compassion, right?
Mm-hmm.
The warrior.
Yeah.
And those are archetypes. And the way that I see them is like, the way that I see life is that I kind of alluded to it before. It's like we made a choice to want to experience the third dimensional reality. I want to know what that's like. It's disconnected from source. So there's a lot of pain and suffering in it. There's a lot of forgetfulness because our brains can only hold on to so much. We go from infinite and limitless to very finite and limited. And so we lose a lot of that. And it's like, I look at like, it's almost like we decide, I'm going to play this game that looks so much fun. I want to have a body. I want to taste food. I want to feel things. I want to have sex. I want to have all these experiences. And that there are all these opportunities to kind of get lost. And there are these systems of oppression of people to think the way I win the game is to subjugate people over time. So the archetypes for me are like these inherent divine codes that we're born with because we are infinite in nature. And we see them or we learn about them or they wake up inside of us. And they're like these universal laws that help guide us beyond the limitations of Amanda's life or Nicole's life, like, so as I learned about and then started getting visions of visitations from the sacred feminine archetypes, they were helping me again, like I mentioned, my husband was going crazy on methamphetamines and destroying our home and a threat to me.
Wow.
I could have reacted in fear, and that I'm really quite sure that would have been a very fucked up reality for me had I let I'm smart, like I said, I'm smart, but I could see what my own smart thinking riddled with fear wanted to do. And these archetypes were like, hey, this is the bigger picture of your life and what's possible. Trust that doing it this way, it's like a map or a code or a blueprint that's like, oh, okay, I don't have to stay in my limited reality and keep stuck here. It's like a little beacon of light that says, look, this is how the universe functions on a bigger order of magnitude. You can step outside. And so you can also do, follow the villain archetype or whatever, but these higher beings, archetypes, it's like, this is what's possible. And so I started tuning in to the wisdom of these archetypes, and they helped me through. They helped me to respond in ways I wouldn't have based on just how much anxiety, sheer panic I had in my being. And, it tuned me back into my spiritual power. It tuned me back into my gifts. It helped me to navigate without regrets. It helped me, to move into a better reality. And that's, for me, what the archetypes have to offer. And when we start to study them and like the hero's journey, it helps us to see a more objective, and I think more enlightened and more optimistic possibility for what we're going through. Again, it's like, say, the metaphor of the butterfly. Like right now, we're in the cocoon, things are dissolving, and the butterfly actually releases antihistamines to fight off that dissolution process. The caterpillar doesn't know what's happening. It's just doing what it's programmed to do.
Yeah.
And when that dissolution happens, it's like, oh shit, stop.
Yeah.
But there are these bigger codes called imaginal cells that get activated in this process. And if they win, then they turn all that mush into a butterfly with wings, which has this elevation,
Yeah.
And so we're going through that process right now, this dissolution. And if we freak out and try to stop it or cling to what we had before, we're not going to make it. And it's going to be suffering and the end. If we can be like tuning into, I love imaginal cells, which is our imagination is our connection with source, because it's the part of us that's infinite. And where we get that ability to step outside of our limitations is through the imagination. Then we get those codes and we get to wake up and we get to be a part of birthing what needs to be birthed right now, which is a lot. Well, and it takes everybody, waking up together to do that.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely need an awakened, conscious society to some of these larger problems. I mean, what you mentioned earlier of other people trying to exploit and take over and that being the way.
Yes.
And I'm so taken aback by this story of your husband and what fear and trauma that must have been to be going through that, and in a live-in partner, I would imagine, and to be navigating that time sounds incredibly difficult.
Yeah, and it also just feels like a lifetime ago. I don't feel that trauma in my system anymore. Plant medicine really helped me. I was working actively with ayahuasca at the time, and I was having some really weird like rashes break out on my eyes, around my eyes. Nobody could figure out what was happening. I could tell that it was from the trauma I had been through, and it would get activated and show up. I did all these different healing modalities and was in, I think it was like my 5th ayahuasca journey. And I was just sitting there very blissful, actually getting a vision of the outcome. It was like showing me the technology that had been used to create subjugation of humans from the beginning of civilization, and that it was a sacred knowledge to be of service to the evolution of humans that had been misappropriated, and that the ultimate outcome is victory. And so I'm like, wow, this is so beautiful. And all of a sudden without any warning, I just purged really strongly. And I knew like that was the trauma in my system getting pulled out, and it never came back.
Wow.
It never came back. Like I just felt healed. And so the plant allies, and also I like to say living medicine now, because mushrooms aren't plants.
Yeah,
they are alive. They grow from the earth, but they are not plants. But the living medicine allies have been so helpful in my own awakening, shedding the limitations, expanding my consciousness, helping me to see new possibilities, helping me to heal that trauma from my ex. For a long time, he's been my ex.
Yeah.
It's really helped me to heal, and I don't have the kind of trauma response that would be normal for a human to have, because of the things that I've been shown about how we can heal and liberate ourselves from these programs.
Right. And I feel like with plant medicine or living medicine, it's always such a deep softening into the human experience, and always coming back to that love and compassion, and you feel things so intensely. It's like, just like zooming into all of your emotions. And so, I mean, that is, I feel like, a great place to process and to integrate changing and moving through these things and letting go and evolving. I mean, that metaphor of the butterfly, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you said softening, because a lot of people that work with plant medicine, like, there's just so much, such a loaded subject, and people come in with a lot of ideas, expectations, curiosity, questions.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately the biggest thing that the plants, all of the plants, the living medicines do is to help just soften us,
Yep.
to soften us so that we don't think that we're in charge, you know?
Yep.
I think, you know, one of the things that is so hard right now is that people who are compassionate, who are awake, who want to make a positive impact, we see so many things that need to be done, and it feels overwhelming,
So
and
overwhelming.
we go into paralysis. But the reality is, if we're doing our part and we're supporting other people in honoring their authentic soul contract, you know, to do it in a safe and sacred way, even if it doesn't make sense to us, to just trust. When we create an environment where each person can really honor what we're here to do, things, you know, on the planet could shift overnight.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's everybody finding permission, hopefully in community, because it makes it easier when you're not isolated.
Right.
And you feel like you belong and you're loved and you're going to be loved, to honor like this is what I'm here to do. I'm here to do this thing. It's safe for me to do it. I'm here to be of service. If everybody could tune in to what I believe is inside of every single person, this wouldn't, you know, and it wouldn't feel overwhelming, because it's like, oh yeah, Nicole's doing her thing, Tazima's doing her thing, you know,
Exactly.
Dr. Gamble's doing his thing, and we're all doing our thing. And even if that person's thing doesn't make sense to us, it doesn't have to. It's not our business. We're doing our business.
Yep. I love that idea. It was something that when I first started teaching yoga, I was so nervous about. It's such a smaller example of this, where I was nervous about attracting students that wanted to come to my class. And my teacher said to me, like, you will teach how you teach, and the people that want to take your class will come to you.
Exactly.
And that changed.
No competition.
Yep. That's how I started this podcast. Anyone else who looks at me, and I sometimes talk to other people who want to create podcasts and help them through that process, they say like, well, there's so many out there. And I'm like, yes. And the people that like you will stay with you, and you have to trust that and stay in that, because you speak to a certain people that other people can't speak to.
So true. I really want to emphasize that, Nicole, because I just turned 50.
Yeah.
I've been working with plant medicine since 1998.
Wow.
And the ayahuasca told me in the Amazon, this was, again, before the dialogue about preparation and integration is so important. It's like really prevalent now. But before I'd ever heard anything, the ayahuasca said, I'm a big fucking deal. And people are not, you know, in the Western world are not getting proper, like they're getting a little list, a little diet, pre and post, and she's like, people need help with this. So, you know how to work with me, and you've cultivated through counseling, psychology, and sacred feminine ritual and all this. You've got all these tools, but people don't have them. So I put together this whole program and was teaching it. And then as soon as ERIE, which is, they're from my alma mater, CIIS, Entheogenic Research, Integration, and Education, this whole organization popped out, and guess what I did? Oh, I don't need to do that anymore. I'll just, because they're doing such a great job. They're doing so much more than me. I don't need to do that anymore. And put it down, and just recently the plants were like, hey, a lot of that is needed on the planet. More and more people are working with plant medicine, and it's, so, you know, the plants are benevolent, the medicines are benevolent, but we're opening ourselves to some things that are not. And not everybody's consciousness can handle what they get opened up to. And you, yes, Amanda Eloesh, have some value, and you're gonna, people need to hear even if they're also getting help from this big, amazing organization that's doing amazing, like you too, like, so it's just like, I'm still also a human waking up and remembering like, oh, okay, even though it's everywhere, if it's what I'm being asked to do, to trust, keep doing it. Absolutely. Because there's value in it. And I'm sure like your yoga class, you know, people are getting something out of it. They're not going to get anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's important.
I hope so. You're right. Like that's all we can hope, is that in being so in tune with ourselves and what gifts we have that we, you know, can share with the world, that people actually get something from that. And I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just here showing up, you know, creating conversation, becoming a psychologist, hoping to hold and share space with people in the healing process and be a full human in all of the gross and beautiful and all of that complexity, and just show up wholly. And I think that's the best thing we can do, really.
Absolutely. If the people who hear this podcast, if all you really take away is to really recognize that all the way that your gifts, your experiences, your wisdom, if you really trust that the unique way they come together in you, if you really honor that as a sacred gift, and it doesn't matter how many people tell you it's not right, or it's somebody else is doing it better, or what, just like, don't let that influence you. Really keep honoring what you feel guided and what feels juicy and alive and authentic for you.
Yes.
Stay true to that.
Yes.
Because that's what the world needs.
Yes. I love it. I'm feeling the Tazima presence, because she uses that word juicy, and she has been working with me.
She is juicy.
Yeah, I know she is. And she's been mentoring me I started taking on clients for sex coach work, and she's been the same process here of like, Nicole, you have gone on a journey being from a conservative purity ring wearer that condemned homosexuals to being a queer poly person now. I mean, she's like, you have a whole journey of wisdom to share and trust your experience. And here's another sex coach who could be like, no, I'm not going to share and teach another person who's going to take my money. But the reality is Tazima has a whole different set of people that she speaks to specifically because she knows her life and is in tune with that. And I have a whole group of people that I speak to. And it's like, so I'm just feeling her presence, and that, you know, her. I'm like, we're all in that same community of like, how can we uplift the unique experience? Yeah, go ahead.
And here's the catch. Here's the interesting thing that I've found. In our subconscious, usually the things that we think are the fucked up, shameful, broken parts of ourselves are the unique things and experiences that we've gone through that are usually almost always and always in my personal experience with myself and clients, those are the things that you need to love up, clean the shit that's been put on them by other people and yourself, because those are the elements of you that make you so unique and valuable. I call them shit pearls, because it's like a pearl, you know, is this little annoying thing that gets covered with loveliness. And a shit pearl is like this beautiful treasure that we put and culture puts shit over, and we have to, you know, like the subconscious work is like putting on the latex gloves and getting the, you know, environmentally friendly cleanser out, but going in and cleaning up all that crap off the genuine gifts that we've been told this is a part of you that you need to hide, you need to try to you know, annihilate in yourself. And that's like, it's just the opposite of true. It's valuable and it's needed. And so, you know, if you're experiencing that, to just know, like, it's very, very likely, I would say 99.9% likely, that every single part of you that you think is the worst possible part of you is probably one of the most amazing parts of you. It's just been misaligned and needs some support in changing the filters, cleaning it up a bit, and letting it shine.
Yep. And that takes choice. Like, we are going to make meaning of these things and not let them pass, right? Exactly. You have to put the gloves on and actually do that work, because a lot of the stuff you can just like side pass, but it's making that choice to say, no, I'm going to sit here, reflect with this, and learn and make meaning of the experience that I have, and use the meaning I do have to change, bring out a better future, I hope. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes. Honestly, right now, what's happening on the planet right now, we don't really have a choice. You know, the only choice is you can consciously do that work in a gentle, loving way and get the elevation, or you can go down with the ship suffering and feeling a lot of pain and a lot of darkness in your life. And to me, like, that's not a choice. I would, you know, like, I'm just gonna,
Yeah, no, it's not.
I'm just gonna do the work. I'd rather build muscle than get my ass kicked.
Exactly. No, for sure. For sure. Sorry, hold on. My headphones died. That's why I was like, oh, this is interesting. Let me see if I have an extra pair. I'm usually not recording with... I don't. That's okay. Let's see here then. Is there anything else that you feel very strongly that you wanted to say on the podcast before? Because I can find my headphones if so.
We've covered a lot of territory.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, well then let me ask the one last question. I ask everyone on the podcast, what is one thing that you wish other people knew was more normal?
Well, I think I just said it, you know, like really remembering, like I may get teary, like you are important. You are sacred. Each person, important, sacred. Your time is important and sacred. And I promise you, what is happening on the planet right now, if you honor your integrity, if you treat yourself like you matter with loving kindness and say no to the things that may be tempting because they speak to the fear and the survival and the scarcity that you were taught, if you look beyond that and really honor your time, your body, what you're doing in the world as sacred, that is the way forward. And to, you know, if that's much easier said than done, get some support. I'm here for you. I'm doing my best to step into a non-transactional model. I'm offering as much
I love that.
Free as I can, calling in people who do have money, who are like, hey, they're waking up too, and like, oh, money is only as good as what it can do, and I want to do good things. So, you know, please reach out. I am here to help. This is what I'm on the planet to do. That's what I've been on the planet doing for almost 50 full years. Probably not since I was, just out of the womb, but, for most of those 50 years, this has been my journey, and I'm happy to help in any way I can. I've created a bunch of free resources. So please get support, hang out with the people who bring out the best in you, and value yourself. Value yourself. That is how we heal the planet.
Yes.
Not escaping our own value and trying to help other people. If you've got cleanup on aisle 4, you're just going to bring your mess over to somebody else. So take care of yourself first.
Yes.
You matter. That's important.
Yes.
And then once you are in a resource place, you can be an inspiration and helpful to other people.
Wow. That was really beautiful. I just have to say that was a lot, and I could feel that this so deeply resonated with you, and these are things you've thought about and have just been wanting to share with the world. It felt, just so full. So I'm just really thank you for bringing your whole self onto the podcast, and for hopefully, inspiring other people to love themselves and honor themselves.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been lovely to share and lovely to connect with you.
Yeah. Is there anywhere for those people that are deeply resonating with you that want to find you that you'd want to plug them to now?
Absolutely. If you want to get on our mailing list, livingwisdomchurch.org. Don't be afraid of the name church. We are not a cult.
Yes.
I joke and say we're the cult of inalienable sovereignty. So
yeah, I love it.
If you want sovereignty, yes, join our cult. But we send out invitations, free resources. We're here to be of service. So you'll find out about what we're up to and how you can. And if you are somebody that has a lot of money and wants to support what we're doing, get on that mailing list too. We can use your help.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. Yes, thank you.
Nicole. So much love to you.
Yes.
May the source be with you.
I know.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, then leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you're a part of the anarchist community, then follow us on Instagram or nominate a guest for the show by sending in a letter to modernanarchypodcast@gmail.com. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.